Hello and welcome to this deep dive tutorial on how to use Dataverse in Copilot Studio. I'm going to show you 3 different things and help you understand what they do, what the difference is between them. We're going to take a look at adding Dataverse as a knowledge source, adding it as a tool, and using it as an MCP server. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, we will get to that. It's awesome, and I'm going to help you understand it. Now, this is an intermediate level tutorial. I'm assuming you're here because you basically know how to create an agent in Copilot Studio and you know what Dataverse is. If you don't know those things, welcome, but go check out one of the beginner tutorials that I'll list in the description here and then come back and jump right into this one. What I've got in Copilot Studio as my starting point here is an agent that basically has nothing in it. It's an account and contact manager. I'm going to make sure that in my settings here, I've got the general knowledge switched off because I only want to use the things that I am connecting. And my Dataverse is basically just going to be accounts and contacts. I'm actually working with the sample data here that if you set up any kind of trial and enable sample data, this is what you'll get. But all the principles here will apply to any custom tables or anything else that you've got going on in Dataverse. All right, let's get into it. There are 3 things that we can do here with adding Dataverse and working with Dataverse in a Copilot Studio agent. The first one is adding it as a knowledge source. Now, adding it as a knowledge source is where you want to create an agent that can search for information in your Dataverse tables. So this allows the user to do natural language queries, things like, what is the annual revenue of this account, list all of our accounts that meet this criteria, those kinds of things. So what I'm going to do to add that as a knowledge is go into the knowledge tab here. This is my blank agent. I haven't got anything else going on. Add knowledge and select Dataverse. Now, if you're adding anything else as knowledge, this follows the same pattern, but there are some special qualities around things you can do with Dataverse to help describe the tables. So I'm working here with the account and contact tables, but if you're working with custom tables, you might have a whole lot of industry or business terminology that's unique to you. And so the ability to configure this and add things in here like descriptions and synonyms and glossary terms is what's going to make this a better experience. So we'll go through all of that. I'm going to do one very basic thing to start with, which is just to add the account table. Notice I'm not adding the contacts table yet on purpose. You'll see why. Let's come in here. The table has a name, it has a description. This is where if it's something that isn't obvious. So the out-of-the-box tables have got these very generic descriptions, but when you're working with Copilot Studio agents, the descriptions matter. We're all a bit lazy about these things in general, but put a description in there, especially if it is something that is unique to your business or a custom table of some kind. And then we're just going to add to agent. We'll give that a second. It's going to confirm the detail. It should give me a little preview of what this data looks like. I'm running this one in real time. We're not going to do any editing here. There you go, you can see it popping up in the background. There's the account and it's ready. So this allows me to ask questions. So let's come in here and just have a little bit of a look at the accounts. So we have got Alpine Ski House here, which has got a phone number, fake address, number of employees and an annual revenue in there. So let's come back here and say, what is the phone number for Alpine Ski House? Should be able to do this. I've done this fairly quickly. You'll see the status is ready. If you're doing this in real life with a real database that has more than 10 sample records in it, which chances are you are, you're going to need to leave this for 10, 15 minutes, a few hours, depending on what's going on in there. So just allow time for the indexing. And there we go. It comes back and returns that information. All right, let's level it up a little bit here. So we have got in here an address where the city is Missoula. So we're going to come in here and say, what city is it in? So you can ask these follow-up questions and get that information back, and it should come back with that. Now, these are very basic examples, and obviously in a real-world scenario, you're going to want to do a whole lot more than this. Let's refresh the chat and try something else. In my part of the world, in Australia, that city field is usually called a suburb. So I can say, what suburb is Coho Winery in? Coho Winery is another one of our sample accounts here. Let's just go back and have a look. and that one is in the city of Phoenix. Let's see if it can handle that. What I've done here is used a synonym. I've actually used something that is not the same as the field name. That field name is called address one city. I've used suburb, which is language that's very kind of common and natural to me as a user, and it's able to do that. So the language model that's going on here is actually able to understand a lot about how these fields are used, how the tables are used to interpret the language up to a point. So these are simple examples. Let's do another one here. If I say, please list all the contacts for Alpine Ski House. Let's see if it can manage that. Now remember, I haven't added the contact table. All I've done so far is add the account table. So it won't be able to do this because it doesn't yet have access to that. So it's actually able to access this one. So if we go back to Alpine Ski House, it says the primary contact is Paul Cannon because that's a data point that's known to the account table. It's a lookup to the contact table, but it's sitting there, but it can't give me the list because I haven't given it access to the contact table. All right, let's build this out a little bit more. Let's add the contact table and see what else we can do. So we're going to come in here and I'm going to add knowledge. Let's go into Dataverse again, and I'm going to add the contact table. This time, add that one to the agent. Again, we'll give it a minute. So now what we've done is added both the account and the contact tables, which means that that query that I tried earlier, please list all of the contacts for this account table, should work. Let's give this another go. Do you know what? Instead of typing, let's just grab this one, refresh the chat, type it in, and now we should get more than the primary contact is whoever that was. We should get the list of the actual contacts. There we go. So it's actually returned the list together with their fake emails and phone numbers in there. All right, let's do another thing here. So we saw earlier that the synonym for suburb for city actually worked because that's within the large language model's understanding. And I'm also working here with standard tables that are pretty well documented and pretty well known. Let's try something else here. Let's say you're in an industry where you've got some very, very specific terminology for something. So perhaps if I come in here and have a look at something where, let's go into a contact and we have a look at Patrick here and he's the owner. We've got a field here called job title. Let's say within our industry, we refer to that as a badge, like it's the name on their badge and it's just become kind of the way that we talk about a job title. And so people might come in here and say, what is Patrick Sands' badge? I should have picked someone who doesn't have an S at the end of their name. Are we happy with my grammatical thing there? All right, and it can't find that. So you've seen everything else I've tried. It actually is able to understand the language pretty well, but it can't handle this. So if you've got a situation like that, what we can do is actually configure the knowledge to understand our language. So I'm going to come in here into the contact knowledge source, and I'm going to select synonyms. And what this allows me to do is come in here and have a look at every single field in the database, and you'll see that I can actually put in synonyms and a description. So if we come down here all the way down to the job title one, what I'm going to do here is add a synonym that says badge. Now this is a weird one. I actually had to work quite hard to find one that didn't work because the LLM is actually very good at doing this. So we're going to say the person's job title or job role or the title on their badge, something like that. Okay, and we're going to save that. We'll give that a second to tick through and we'll try this again. So you've got the ability for every table that you add to go in and add one or more synonyms for each particular column in the table, as well as describing it. You've also got the option of a glossary here. So if for instance, you were in a non-profit organization and you called contacts, I don't know, constituents or something like that, or stakeholders, then you could just put another term for contacts. So you can put in any sort of general language that you use that's related to this table, as well as these specific things that are related to individual columns. Now you can see that there is a lot of work in that. So the more that you've got industry terminology or terminology that doesn't actually match the way the fields or the columns are named, that is the work that will improve the performance of what you can do with this. Let's take a look now. Let's give this a test now. We'll ask again, what is Patrick Sands' badge? And hopefully now that I've added that as a synonym against the job title column in the contact table, it should understand that that's what I'm talking about. And there we go, it comes back with his badge is owner, which in fact it is. So that's how you can get the most out of Dataverse as a knowledge source. Now, the next thing we're going to have a look at is Dataverse adding it as a tool and what is the difference between these things. When you've added it as a knowledge source, this is using natural language queries to find the information and bring it back. But if I say create a new contact, for instance, this is an action that I want to take now, and it can't do that because all I've got in this agent, all I've done so far is add in the ability to search for things, but now what I want to do is add in the ability to do things. So tools are for doing things, knowledge is for retrieving and searching things. Let's take a look at what we can do with a Dataverse tool. So we're going to come in here and have a look at the tools menu. Let's just refresh that because I don't want that sitting there. And we're going to add a tool. Now, there are a number of different tools that you can add in Copilot Studio. That's for another video, another time. Deep dive in tools, let me know if you want that. I'm working on many more things. So what we've got here though is a set of featured connectors and connectors. These are Power Platform connectors. So if you're familiar with using connectors to build flows in Power Automate or connect data with Power Apps, exactly the same thing. You're in the right zone. Model Context Protocol we're going to come back to as the third part of this video. So what I'm going to do here is select the Microsoft Dataverse connector, and what you'll see is that we've got a whole lot of different things that are in here. These are the actual tools or the actions that I can add into my agent. So where I wanted to be able to add something, create a contact, there's a tool in there to be able to add a new row into that environment, as well as a whole lot of other things. You can also do this get a row by ID, which is a retrieval in a way, but the knowledge source is enabling you to do like a natural language query, whereas this is a more structured kind of retrieval that you might have a specific ID that you're bringing it back. So it's used in a different way. Think of this as the same kind of function you might use to build an automation, but we're going to use it in natural language. There's a bunch of Dynamics things in there. Dynamics uses Dataverse as the database underneath, so that all functions the same way. What I'm going to do here is choose this tool, add a new row to a database. Now, I want you to remember that experience because you're going to stay with me for the MCP server, especially if you don't understand what that is. I promise you we're going to break this down. But I want you to notice here that I had to choose a particular action. I chose one particular action, which is add a row to Dataverse. I'm adding just that one thing. I have got my connection in here. If you haven't already connected to Dataverse in this environment, you'll just have to go in and authenticate that connection. And I'm going to choose Add and Configure. And this is going to bring up a configuration screen where I can choose how this tool is going to behave in my agent. Now, I've added this just at the agent level. In order to do what I'm doing here, you need to be working with an agent that has the generative orchestration capability switched to enabled. If you're working with an agent that just uses classic orchestration, you won't be able to do this part that I'm doing here, but you can add this as a tool in a topic. So we can come back to that. But the way that this works with generative orchestration is super cool. So I want to make sure you've seen this. So now we've got our configuration screen for the Dataverse tool. And if you'd added any other Dataverse tool or any other Power Platform connector tool, same concept here. First of all, you can choose at any point if you want this to be enabled or not. If you don't want to use it anymore in your agent, you can switch it off. We've got a name here. So what I'm going to do is say this is for adding accounts. So what I'm going to do is to say add a new account. I'm calling this a basic CRM. So I'm going to say add a new account to the CRM. And the description here, create a new row in a table in a Power Platform environment. We're going to say creates a new account record row. I can still say record, it's old language, row record. Creates a new account row based on user input. Okay, now even though I've given it a new name, the original name stays here so you don't lose that reference. And now what I can do is come down and have a look at the other parts of this. So I've got my details there. We're going to have a look at this input section here. So let's come down to inputs. And now what we've got is, this is what it needs in order to be able to create that new row. So the first thing it needs is, which environment and which table are we talking about here? So there are options for each input to say you either want to dynamically fill it with AI or set a custom value. For the environment in the table, I've got a specific environment and a specific table in mind. I don't want this to try to figure that out every time. So for my environment, it's a custom value, and I'm going to come in here and choose the environment that I'm in. So I'm in an environment here called dev. So I'm going to choose my dev environment. And now I'm going to choose my table. Again, I'm going to set a custom value for that. And this will give me a drop down of all of the Dataverse tables that are in that environment. So let's have a look at, see, I picked accounts because it's at the top of the list. That's nice and easy. So that's good. You can't do anything with this row item. That's just happening in the background. You might see it just disappeared in there. Now, account name has popped up because that's a mandatory field. So any fields on that Dataverse table that are set to mandatory will automatically be in here, but we can add other things as well. So in this case, we want this to be dynamically filled with AI because we want the user to be having a conversation and for that to just be picked up as part of the conversation. Let's take a look at this one. If we come in here and click the customize option, this opens a card where I can configure how I want this to behave. So the display name is account name, that's okay. This is type the company or business name. Now this description, we're going to do something really cool here. If you've built agents before, you might have come across the experience where you build a topic and you go in and say, you know, what's the account name? What's the city? What's the phone number? All of those kinds of things. And then it asks the question each time, and it does something that's called slot filling, which is that it looks for the answers and it can look for pieces of information in the chat and fill those slots. What we're doing here by adding a tool and using generative orchestration is setting up something where the agent just understands these are the slots I have to fill, and I'm not going to create a topic here. It's going to generate the questions based on what I describe. So the more information you give it in the description here, the more interesting the questions will be. So you can leave those basic things, but I'm going to say the trading name of the business. I'm just going to put something in there because I want you to see how that impacts the questions that it asks. Now, identify as, this is what's called entity extraction. Not entity as in tables. If you're a Dataverse person, you probably used to know tables as entities. Different use of the word entities. This is the AI use of the word entities. This means a piece of structured information in unstructured text. So this allows it to look for specific types of information. In this case, the name of the account is just string of text. So we're going to leave that, but I'll put in an example here where we can come back to something else. There are a bunch of advanced options here. That's too much for this video. We'll go there. All right, so let's close this one. So now it knows the environment and the table name. It's not going to ask for those. They're already set, but it is going to ask for the account name. I want to add some other things because I don't want the experience here of creating a new account to just be the account name. So let's say I want to also add the city. So we can come in here and say, let's add the city. And let's customize that. Now, address one city. Let's put in city. Now, in fact, actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call this one suburb because that's what I call it. And this is a good example because the data field is called city, but I can present it to the user as the language that they use without actually changing the underlying database. So the description for this is going to be the suburb or city where the account headquarters are. Okay, good. Again, user's entire response. There is the option in here for a city, but because this is a suburb, that entity list is probably not going to go as far down as I would like it to. So we're just going to keep that as a text string as well. Let's put something in here where we do want that to be a number of some kind. So remember we had, if I go back into my Alpine Ski House here, let's say the number of employees, because that's an actual number. So that will do something different. So let's put in number of, add input, number of employees. There we go. And let's go in here and customize it, and you'll see what's happened. See how this identify as is already set to number. So because the data field that I've added in here has a format of number, it's automatically kind of mapping that in the entity, but you can choose to change that or put in anything else that you like in there, but it will pick it up for you. Number of employees that work at the account. Yeah, so that's going to be too much for a question. So the description is the total number of staff working at this business. Okay, once you are done, click that save button. I probably should have clicked the save button earlier. All of this is sitting here, not actually saved at this point. The other thing here is that the order of these things matters. So it's going to prompt for those questions in the order that we've set them up. That order is okay for me. I don't know how we got category in there. I might have, while I was talking, done a little bit too much. So if you've got something in there you don't want, you can just delete it. And you can use these little handles here to move things up or down, but I'm going to leave that as it is. One more thing before we go any further, completion. After running, don't respond. That's a really bad user experience because I'm going to go in and create the account and it will just say nothing to see here. You have the option to write the response with generative AI, which is the one I'm going to use for now. But if you want to, and you are skilled with adaptive cards, you can send an adaptive card. You can also send a specific message back where you can use formulas and things in here to put variables and all sorts of things back in. That's, again, more advanced than I want to cover here because I really want to focus on the Dataverse capabilities. Write the response with generative AI again. Let's save the changes. So what I'm going to do now is test this agent because we are using generative orchestration. So we go back into the overview here. That's this setting here, enabled. This will only work if that's enabled. What happens now is this tool, the way that I have described the tool and the way that I've described the inputs is how the agent is going to use it. Now, I have not created, there's no topics going on in here. This is a completely blank agent where all I've got is the standard system topics. I haven't created a topic. No topics here. All right, so let's come in here and say I need to add a new account to the CRM. Now, that enables the generative orchestration to call the tool. It's calling that Dataverse tool. We've got this lovely piece here called the activity map that helps you see what's going on. So now it starts to ask in order the questions based on what I put in there. So you'll see what is the account name or the trading name of the business, because that's how I describe that. Before I continue filling, what the activity map is showing me in the agent here is that it's called that tool. It's got the inputs already. Here is my CRM URL and the table name that were fixed values. And you can see it knows what it's looking for. It's looking for a string, the account name. It's looking for the suburb string, and it's looking for the number of employees. And then it's going to give me some outputs. So this one is called Contoso. Let's go with Contoso Coffee. I don't want to put in a real business name and get in trouble here. Let's go back to our list of business names. We've got Contoso Pharmaceuticals, but we don't have Contoso Coffee. So we're going to go Contoso Coffee, enter that. And what is the suburb? So I'm going to put this one in Melbourne, which is my part of the world. Now, look what's happening over the side here. It's actually able to figure this out. So it's put this in and it's filling these slots and it's asking me these questions every time. How many employees does the business have? 3,000. I'm going to be nice to it at this point. We're going to be a little bit mean to it in a minute and see what it can do. Now, this is not my favorite experience. The first time you create one of these connectors, you actually have an extra step in there that you have to allow it and validate it using your credentials. Kind of wish that that was part of the process, but it isn't. So we just have to do that once. You won't get that message every other time. So you just have to sort of go through with that. Sometimes you have to refresh the chat and do it again. All right, it's been added. Now this is the AI generated response. Remember in my tool configuration, I said to do that. Let's go back into my list of accounts and refresh, and let's look for, there we go, Contoso Coffee, Melbourne. Cool, right? Let's change the behavior a little bit here. So let's refresh this. And again, we'll use the trigger phrase. I need to add a new account. And this time I am going to give it more information than it needs. So you'll see it's asking me for this, but it's looking for other things. So what if I say it has 4,000 staff? Right, which is not the question, not the question it was asking, but it knows, it's looking for that. It's aware of what else is going on in the conversation. And now I can keep going with the rest of it. You could come in here and say, I need to add an account called this in this suburb with this thing, and it will pick it all up at once. Similarly, it knows it's looking for a number. If I say I need to add a new account, and let's put in Contoso Packaging. Very creative with my names today. This one is in Sydney. And when it asks for the number here, I can say about 400, and it will pick that up because it'll just put in 400. But if I say lots, for instance, that's not a number, it's actually going to prompt me for that again because it knows it's looking for a number. So it's like, well, that's not a valid answer. I think it's about 400. It will extract the entity. It'll extract that from there, and then it will create that account in my system. Okay, so far so good. What if I say, though, update, I need to update the Contoso Coffee account. So let's come back in here. Contoso Coffee is in Melbourne. Update the Contoso account so that the city is Brisbane. Now remember, I added one tool, and that tool is add a new account to the CRM. So when I do this, the generative orchestration goes, okay, you're doing something with Contoso Coffee, and this is the closest tool that it can find because I've only added this one capability, which is to add something. I haven't added a capability to update things. So let's go in here and say 500. What it's going to do, it says it's updated. Let's see what it actually did. Let's come back in here and refresh. I've now got two Contoso Coffee accounts, the original one and the new one. So even though it thinks it's done it, it's called the best available tool to do the job and it hasn't done it. What if I then wanted to say, create a new account called Contoso, what else could we do? Contoso Cafe, I'm running out of ideas here. Contoso Cafe with contacts, David Pelton, Jeff Price, and Cassie Hicks. I'm going to copy this one. Spoiler alert. The next thing I'm going to show you, this will work, but right now it won't work. Have a think about why this one isn't going to work. All I've done is add one tool. The one tool can add a new account to the CRM. But, oops, spelled it wrong, never mind. But it can't add contacts and it can't figure out that relationship because I've literally only given it one thing to do. So that will go ahead and create that account. We refresh that. So now we've got Contoso Cafe with Melbourne spelt wrong. We've got the number of employees, but no contacts. So here's where we level up. We're going to add a tool that is an MCP server for Dataverse. So let's come in here and we'll talk you through what this is. So we're going to say add a tool, and this time, instead of choosing a connector where all I can do is choose one action, we're going to come in here to choose the Model Context Protocol. Now the Model Context Protocol, I'm glad it's abbreviated to MCP, is essentially a common language that this is bigger than Microsoft and this is bigger than Copilot Studio. This is a common language that is being used to make it easier to connect to all of these kinds of databases and different kinds of servers. So rather than the work being on me, you saw what happened as a user, I have to create individual connections. These are all low-code connections, low-code tools. But if I was connecting to something that didn't have all those low-code tools, as a maker or developer, I would have to build all of those different connections and tools. This now means that the system that I'm connecting to, the work has been done there. So there's like a common layer in there that makes it very easy for me to connect to all the tools at once. So let's come in here and have a look at the Dataverse MCP server. I'm going to just click Add and Configure, and this is going to come in and do a bunch of things at once. So the Dataverse MCP server has got a bunch of tools associated with it that this can do. So unlike the configuration I had before, where I had to go in and put in the inputs and say which table and all of those things, this doesn't have anything else in it. So I could add inputs, but I don't need to. There are sort of no tools sitting here. Let's give it a second to refresh, because this should actually, when it's done, show me a whole bunch of tools. So while that's refreshing, let's just jump over here and have a look at this list of tools that are available. So any MCP server that you connect to will have documentation that lists the things that it can do. Now, this is one that is out of the box with Copilot Studio. If you want to connect to other MCP servers, that's a whole other topic. Clever people who know how to set them up can set them up and do all those things. But if you're a low-code maker like me, this is an option now for connecting to Dataverse in a really cool way without knowing how to set any of these things up. And you can see that these are the tools that it's got available. It can actually do a whole lot more than when I just added that one tool to say add a row, or then I could add other tools to say update a row. This is able to insert a row. It's also got the ability to update a row, but there are some other things in here that are clever around, for instance, understanding the schema. So this has got a bunch of different tools available in it that are going to be able to work together, and they understand how to work together without me needing to put all of the pieces together. So let's go back in here. So now in my Dataverse MCP server configuration, you'll see all of those things that we were just looking at. All of those tools have been added. I've talked a lot, but all I did was go MCP server Dataverse done. That's it, right? All right, let's give this a test now. I'm going to say create a new account called Contoso Bakery in Melbourne with 50 employees. Now what this is going to do is call that MCP server, because I've switched that one off now. Let's go into the activity map here. So this is a fairly basic thing. This is the same thing we were able to do before, but just to show you that it can do the same thing, it's extracting from my natural language query what it should do and where it should put that, and it's given me a confirmation message. So that's looking good. I didn't set up all the entities and the inputs that I had to do before, because it can just do that. So there we go, Contoso Bakery, 50 employees in Melbourne. So far, so good. Let's do the thing before that we tried before, where we tried to update it, because updating is available. So we can say update the city of Contoso Bakery to Brisbane. Now remember, when we did this before, it told us that it had done it with the tool, but it actually hadn't. It had actually just created a new one. So now, because it's got a list tables function, so it's going in and listing the tables, it is putting in a query. I don't know if you saw that. If we go back to the query, it's actually created from my natural language request a query that is looking for the account name is this, so I didn't have to construct that. It appears to have done it. It's saying it's updating the record. Let's come back in here and go back to my list of accounts and look at that, right? So now, because we've got these tools working together, let's see how we go if we ask it to do the other thing. So we're going to say, create a new account called Contoso Farm and add 3 related contacts. David Pelton, Patrick Hines, and Price. Okay, let's see that's how it goes with this. So it's going to call that server again and creates the records. It creates the account. That went pretty fast, but you see the first thing it's doing there is creating the account. It's now listing the table, so it's figuring out what else it needs to do and creating a record. So, oh no, it's still working through that. We've gone describe the table. It's now creating a record. So now it's figured out where the contact table is. It's creating those 3 records. And there we go. That looks promising. Let's see what happens here. Let's give this a refresh. Contoso Farm with 3 contacts. It's a little bit magic, actually, this MCP server. So that is a end-to-end picture of using Dataverse in Copilot Studio. These are quite simple examples, but we've added knowledge to retrieve information. You've seen how you can add a tool to do a specific action, and this big uplift with being able to add the MCP server. Let me know if you've got any other questions about Dataverse. If you want more deep dive on working with tools or anything else in Copilot Studio, stay subscribed. As always, thank you for watching.